leaking all this garbage. It's insane.
Let me skip past because I know he kind of rambles in the beginning here, but you'll see.
On Valdez. Anybody? With the current thinking on what a virus really is. I had a dramatic example of this when I was growing up. Right outside our house, there was a wetlands, and they're full of frogs. That's what happened. Diseases are poisoning. It's one of the reasons why vaccines. So let me skip that for a minute. So what happened in 1918? There was a huge, in every pandemic in the last 150 years, there was a quantum leap in the electrification of the Earth. In 1918, late fall of 1917, there was the introduction of radio waves around the world. Whenever you expose any biological system to a new electromagnetic field, you poison it, you kill some, and the rest go into a kind of suspended animation so that, interestingly, they live a little bit longer and sicker. And then starts in World War II with the next pandemic with the introduction of radar equipment all over the Earth, blanketing the entire Earth in radar fields. First time humans have ever been exposed to that. In 1968, there was the Hong Kong flu, and it was the first time the Earth has a protective layer in the Van Allen belt, which essentially integrates the cosmic fields from the sun and the Earth, from the moon and Jupiter, et cetera, integrates that and essentially distributes that to the living beings of the Earth. And we put satellites emitting radioactive frequencies in the Van Allen belt. Within 6 months, we had a new viral pandemic. Why viral? Because the people are poisoned, they excrete toxins, they look like viruses. People think it's a flu epidemic. In the 1918 epidemic, the Boston Health Department decided to investigate the contagiousness of this. So they, believe it or not, took hundreds of people with the flu and they sucked the snot out of their nose and injected it into the healthy people who didn't have the flu, and not one time could they make the next person sick. They did this over and over again, and they were not able to demonstrate contagion. They even did it with horses who apparently got the Spanish flu, and they put bags over their head, and the horses sneezed in the bag, and they put the bag over the next horse, and not one horse got sick. You can read about this in a book called The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Furstenberg, who chronicles all the steps in the electrification of the Earth and how within 6 months there was a new flu pandemic all over the world. And when you hear the normal explanations, how did it go from Kansas to South Africa in 2 weeks? So the entire world got the symptoms at the same time, in spite of the fact that the mode of transportation was horseback and boats, and there's no explanation for it. They just say, we don't know how that happened. But when you think about it, with these radio waves and other frequencies that some of you have in your pocket and on your wrist, you can send a signal to Japan and it arrives instantaneously. So any of you who don't believe there is an electromagnetic field that communicates globally within seconds just is not paying attention to this. And I will only finish.
Very interesting there, Severe. And, he's talking about the radio waves or the electrification, I don't even know if that's a word, of the planet, but I think it really makes a lot of sense. And if you remember early on, I did a couple of videos and my buddy Paul had sent me over some information too. And this guy even talks about later on, he's like, well, where was the first city in the world that was completely blanketed by 5G? Wuhan, China, right? And it wasn't just 5G though. If you remember, it was specifically the Huawei 5G. And then they also had that where we had the first cases in the United States in Washington State, right? So I see some people earlier talking in the chat about 5G in your house, and I think that is different. Like I have a 5G router in my house as well, but I don't believe it's the same spectrum as what they're dealing with. I think the Huawei 5G is specifically different. But what do you think about that one, brother? I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, the way he breaks it down, doesn't it?